Hello gardeners. It's the first day of fall here in Colorado, and that means it's time to start taking cuttings of the plants I want to keep for next year's garden. And I'm going to start with Coleus. I've got 8 or 9 varieties that I really like to keep and I can't always find for sale, so I propagate them. They're really easy, and I'll show you just how to do that. So this is a Coleus variety that I really like. It's new to me this year, and I don't remember the name of it, to be honest, but that doesn't really matter. I like the color. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some cuttings off of it, cuttings that don't have any flower heads on it. And by flower heads, I mean like this guy right there. See the blue flowers on that one? You don't want that cutting. You want a cutting that just has leaves, like this one. And it's not very big, you know, several sets of leaves. And I'll take 5 or 6 cuttings off of this plant, and I want to root them now before a frost, so that if the cuttings don't take, I have time to take another batch. But with Coleus, you can pretty much expect a 99% take. So let me show you how I prepare the cuttings. So here I am in my grow room in the basement, where I winter over everything that I want to use for next year, and that includes Coleus cuttings. And I'll prepare them just by taking off some of this lower foliage here. I'll show you what size cutting I usually end up with. You know, when you're dealing with cuttings, you're in a race against time for this cutting to produce roots before it dies. So you want to do this as quickly as possible once you've cut it off the plant. Now that I've got it down to this little bit of a cutting, see, I don't have much leaves left on it from what I started with, because that's what loses all the moisture and causes the plant to decline very quickly before it can produce roots. So next what I'm going to do is I've got a little solution of an insecticide, a systemic insecticide liquid, that I swish the cutting around in, and before I stick it to root it. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here on my workbench, I've got this little bucket. I've mixed up some 3-in-1 systemic insecticide. I like systemics because it's absorbed into the plant. This is a plant that I'm not going to eat. It's also a plant that's going to be indoors, so I don't have to worry about pollinators or other beneficials. But what I do have to worry about is things like spider mites, aphids, and other hitchhikers that are going to come inside from outdoors. And I can't have that. So I just take my cutting, I swish it around, let it sit in the solution for a little bit. After about a minute or 2, I'll remove it. And until I'm ready to put it into the potting soil that I'm going to root it in, I make sure that it goes into a bucket or a little container of the same solution, and I stick it down in there like a cut flower. And while it's waiting, it's going to be absorbing that systemic in the water, and that will give me some extra protection. So now that we've got the cuttings prepared, I put together a number of pots with some nice clean potting soil, pre-moistened of course. I never do anything with dry potting soil. It doesn't wet well. So pre-wet it. You probably have to use your hands like you're mixing dough, but it's worth the extra effort. And I've also got this waterproof tray here that holds water so that I can bottom water these cuttings. And I always find that seems to keep the soil nice and fluffy, and a lot of air in the soil, and having good air in the soil is great for starting cuttings. I even add a little extra perlite to the Pro Mix potting soil that I use. So here's our cocktail of cuttings, all the different varieties that I want to keep for the winter, for use next spring in all my annual pots. So let's see, let's start with this guy here. It's got a very long stem, probably longer than it needs to be. In fact, it's even got more leaves than it needs to have. So you can either cut some of these leaves in half to reduce the surface area, or just take off the extra leaves. I chose to just cut them in half. I'm going to give it a brand new cut just below a node. A node is where the leaves used to be attached, and you usually get most of your rooting at a node or just below the node. So I take that off, and then I just come over here to my pots, and I usually go all 4 corners and then one in the middle. And I'll just go ahead and do that while you're watching. I'm not exactly sure why I do all 4 corners. It just gives them a nice spacing so that they're not too crowded in the pot. I don't want anybody getting mildew or starting to rot or just not having enough breathing room. And there you go. There's a pot that's nicely done. It's got plenty of room between the cuttings to breathe. And then I'll just fill this tray with water and let them soak overnight so that that potting soil gets really nice and moist. Usually with Coleus, you don't have to cover them with plastic. You don't have to put a dome over them. They're not that concerned about humidity while they're rooting in, but you do need to keep an eye on the moisture. Make sure that they're kept well watered. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So here we are. Cuttings are all stuck, and they are sitting in a tray of water, which they'll soak most of that up overnight, and that'll get the soil nice and moist. Now, if your cuttings decide that they're not happy with this new situation they find themselves in and start wilting on you, it's indicating that they're losing water faster than they can take it up from the soil. So that's where something like a humididome or even a clear plastic bag draped loosely over the top of the cuttings. I usually offset it a little bit so that there's room for air to get in and out so it doesn't get stagnant inside. But that will usually perk them back up. And after about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, you'll be able to take that cover off because they'll have acclimated to their new situation. So I hope that helps you with how to take Coleus cuttings. So I'm headed back outside to take some cuttings off some begonias and a few other plants I want to keep over to next year. These are easy plants. You can grow them under lights like I do. You can grow them on a sunny windowsill. And you can even take more cuttings as they grow during the winter and really build up your stock of plants. That way you don't have to buy so many in the spring, and that money you save you can use toward buying new plants. So happy gardening, everybody. See you next time.